Welcome back to Askewed Reviews, and we're ending Batman Week with a two-part request for the 2012 and 2013 animated films, Batman The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and 2. Here is your trivia question for today. In Part 2, there is a live-action Superman. Which one is it? The answer will be at the end of this video. In the film, it is 1986, and Bruce Wayne, who is now 55 years old, has retired as Batman for about 10 years, which coincides with the death of Jason Todd. Commissioner James Gordon, who is turning 70 years old, is still friends with Bruce Wayne and is now at this point well aware of the secret identity that he is Batman. But he's getting very close to retirement himself now. During these past 10 years, the Joker has been locked up in Arkham and has been practically catatonic the entire time. Another inmate of Arkham Asylum is Harvey Dent, who finally had some plastic surgery and now is a whole person once again and no longer Two-Face. Dr. Bartholomew Walper, who has been taking care of Harvey Dent, believes he's ready to re enter society, and boy, was he wrong. Now, along with Harvey Dent, Gotham is also having to deal with a gang called the Mutants, and they are run by one called the Mutant Leader. So, due to all of this, Batman, of course, comes back out of retirement, even though Alfred is not happy about it. And that's right, Alfred is still kicking around. Now, while getting back to crime fighting, Batman at one point saves the life of a 13-year-old girl named Carrie Kelly, who has taken it upon herself and has now decided that she is going to be the new Robin. Now, eventually, Batman decides the only way to prove himself and to prove to Gotham that there's no need to fear anymore is to take on the mutant leader one on one in a fair fight. Now, as we jump over to part 2, we start after Batman has defeated the mutant leader, and some of his gang has split apart and now become the Sons of the Batman, who are actually trying to do good. We also witness the retirement of Jim Gordon as he passes the torch to Commissioner Ellen Yindel, who is not a fan of Batman and the way he handles things. And now that Batman is back to handing out his vigilante justice, the Joker no longer seems to be in a catatonic state. In fact, he is now convinced his doctor, Dr. Walper, who we all remember did so great with Harvey Dent, that he's ready to turn a new leaf. So Dr. Walper manages to convince a talk show to allow Joker to come on and tell his side of the story. This, of course, ends horribly as Joker goes off on a murder spree. Batman does eventually catch up with him, and during a very vicious fight, the Joker ends up being dead, which of course does not look so good for Batman. Now, to make matters worse, not long after this, a bomb is about to go off that Superman is able to at least slightly stop, but the explosion does take out the power in Gotham City. And now it's up to Batman, Robin, a retired Jim Gordon, and the Sons of Batman to stop all the chaos. And now, with Batman even saving Gotham City, the President of the United States feels that he's getting a bit too big for his britches, so he decides to send his Wonder Boy, Superman, off to stop him one way or another. Batman, of course, refuses to stop, so now it comes to the ultimate fight: Batman versus Superman. Who will win? Both of these films were directed by J. Olivia, and as you may well know, both movies are based off of the four-part comic series Batman The Dark Knight Returns. This was a series of comics created by Frank Miller. The film also has a really great voice cast. You have Peter Weller as Batman, Ariel Winter as Carrie Kelly, David Selby as Commissioner Gordon, Michael Emerson as the Joker, Gary Anthony Williams as the Mutant Leader, and Mark Valley as Superman. Each of the two parts did come out as their own separate movie, but most of the time nowadays you'll find them put together as what's called Batman The Dark Knight Returns Deluxe Edition. Now, well before there was the two-part animated movies, there was talk in the early 2000s of a live-action movie adaptation of The Dark Knight Returns. Apparently, the Hughes brothers were going to direct it, and they really wanted Clint Eastwood to play Batman/Bruce Wayne. Unfortunately, that never happened. Michael Emerson says that he based his performance of the Joker off of the actor Paul Lynde. Gray Griffin in these films voices the character of Sarah Essen Gordon. She would also voice Jim Gordon's original wife, Barbara Keene Gordon, who would appear in the movie Batman Year One. They actually make a reference to this film as you can see the family portrait of the original family in Jim Gordon's home. The president in these films is, of course, supposed to be Ronald Reagan. Did you know that the character of Bruno is supposed to be based off of actress Brigitte Nielsen? In the comic book version of this story, the character of David Endocrine, who is the talk show host, is based off of David Letterman and even looks like him. In the film, he looks a little different, and that's probably due to the fact that he's voiced by Conan O'Brien in the movie. At a convenience store in part 1, you can actually see a magazine rack that has some DC comics on it, including Swamp Thing, Watchmen, and even Sandman. When Gordon is trying to reach out to Batman, the phone that Alfred picks up not only looks like but has the same ringtone as the one that's used in the Batman 1966 TV series. In both the movies and the comics that Frank Miller created, he also created a fictional country called Corto Maltese, which has shown up in quite a few DC properties, including Batman, The Suicide Squad, Smallville, Arrow, and probably multiple others. So when it comes to the films, Batman The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and 2, I really enjoyed them and I thought they were a great representation of the comics. So I'm going to give them both a 4 out of 5. Now, as for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode, in part 2 there was a live action Superman. Which one is it? During the Batman Superman fight that appears in part 2, you can actually see a poster that showcases Christopher Reeve as Superman. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews, and if there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.